Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Welcome all. Today we are going to discuss our previous topic, that is file structure of Windows. We are going to continue on that topic. And as we discussed in our previous topic about the Windows Explorer, which is basically a tool that will help us navigate into our Windows machine. This Windows Explorer is basically divided into different portions, like this left hand side, which is called as a navigation pane, which contains the most frequently used items, or you can see the most important items in our machine, like this desktop or the downloads folder or the documents folder, and this PC itself, wherein you have these different kinds of drives. We also have this portion which is called as the content pane, which will depict any of the selected item, that is the item selected here will be the contents of those items will be displayed here. Similarly, we have this title bar and we have this status bar. This status bar will show the status of the currently selected item. So this PC is selected here, and you can see that it has 10 items and one item is currently selected. You can count the number of items. So these are 6 and 4 drives, that is 10 items, and one of them is selected. I can select any of the two items by pressing the control key on my keyboard and then clicking using the left button of the mouse. So you can see there's 10 items and two of them are selected. Now this selecting of these particular folders we will come to know about in later classes, that this selecting of certain items in any of the window here is very much important in copying, pasting, or moving the files from one location to another. Today we will discuss about the actual structure of the Windows. That is, we will talk about the NTFS file system in um, a slightest detail, and then we will talk about how the previously uh, how this picture that we learned about in our previous class is basically implemented. So now this is our hard disk drive, that is the main drive, that is the main secondary storage that is present on our system. Apart from this hard disk drive, we can have any other secondary storage device like the pen drive or the CD that may be present in the system or that may not be present. And this hard disk drive is where actually your operating system is present. So you can see from this Windows Explorer, as I already told you in our previous class, that this C drive is where the Windows operating system is basically placed, because this is depicted by this Windows logo on the drive. Similarly, we have other drives as well, but they don't contain this Windows logo. Apart from this, this is not always the case. This you can change. The user preference might be that he may select a different item, icon, picture, etc. So this may not always denote that our Windows drive is the C drive or any other particular drive. So what we can also do is we can go into the contents of this uh, drive, and you can see that there are different folders present here, and the Windows folder is present in the same drive. That means this is basically a very important folder. This denotes the files, or the all the important files that are required for the Windows to work smoothly and normally. Apart from this, we have these program files also, which is basically where all the programs will be stored. Now you see in this operating system of mine, which is basically a 64-bit operating system, I have the two versions of those program files. One is the x86 version, another is the simple program files, because this one means that it is the actual folder where the files will be installed by default, but this is where 32-bit applications will be stored. For now we will leave this concept of this 32 and 64-bit operating system, and we will continue to learn about the file structure of our Windows operating system. Now we were talking about the hard disk drive being the main secondary storage device. This secondary storage device can be further partitioned, which are basically logical partitions, and it can range from anywhere minimum of one, that means the Windows drive itself, and you can keep all the files and folders in this Windows drive. However, it is not recommended to partition this hard disk drive where you will place your Windows in only a single drive. It is because the the part of this hard disk drive, which is the Windows drive, needs to be separated from the user files, because if there is any problem in user files tomorrow, it may not affect this Windows files, and in turn it will not affect the functionality of the system. It can lead to the crashing of the system. If you place, however, if you place your user files in some other drives and you separate this Windows drive from it, it is very much recommended and it is secure for the system. You see, then those partitions will contain either a folder or they will contain a file, and this is the same case with any other drive present in the system. Now those files are basically where the user will keep the data. So files can have further no branches. While as we have different kinds of we have these folders which can be subdivided further into a folder or a file. That means a folder will in turn contain another folder, it may contain another folder, or it may contain a file. If it contains only a file, then the branch ends there. But if it contains a folder which is a subfolder, then it may continue further. Same is the case with any other drive in the system. Now if we have a practical look on it, so we see that this is the C drive. This is where the Windows is placed. So if I go into the C drive, you see different kinds of folders and different kinds of files. Now this folder can have a subfolder, as we learned earlier. So it can have a subfolder or it can have a file. If I double click on it, you see that there are different kinds of folders that are present here. How many of them? So you can see them here. So this is the status bar. Total of 103 items are present, and if you view them, and you can see that there are these much number of folders, and then we have these files, different kinds of files. Now this is the case continues further, that if you go into a folder, suppose I go into this folder, I see three different folders again. That means these three folders are a part of this Windows folder. Okay, and this Windows folder is itself a part of the C drive. Notice the address bar. If I further go into this app compat folder, you will see that the address bar now shows the app compat folder. That means I am currently standing here in this folder, and these three folders are subfolders of this folder, and there is no file present in it. If I click on any of the folders here, like here, so I come to a point where I have one folder and one file. This is also depicted by the type shown here. So if you have this file folder mentioned in front of this item, that means it's a file folder, and otherwise it's a file. Now if I further go into this install, you will see only files present here. There are none folders present. That means this structure, hierarchical structure, ends up there. That means ultimately we reached a point where we have only a file in the folder, like in this case. So we understand practically this concept of how a folder, how a hard disk is divided into different drives, and a drive may contain a folder or a file, and a folder may in turn contain another folder or a file, which may continue up to various levels. Now we actually look at the file system. The name of the file system, the type of the file system that Windows follows. If you notice that if I right click on any of the drives here, suppose I'll continue with the C drive, and if I click on the properties, notice that there opens this kind of window, but this is not called as a window here, this is called as a dialog box, as opposed to this windows that is present here. What is the difference? First and foremost difference is that the Windows and this dialog box does not have these control similar control buttons. These are called as a control buttons. Here we have this minimize, maximize, and a close button, whereas here we only have a close button, because this dialog box is meant to provide certain information to the user, and so you cannot actually maximize it or minimize it. Either you close it or you do not close it. So if you close it, then you can work in this window, or if you do not close it, that then you may actually click on some other portion of the window here, but this will be in the background, so it is also present here. It has only hidden away from the user. There are some dialog boxes which if you want to unattend to, you have to close them. There is no other choice. You will see that your screen freezes and you have to actually close them before you can proceed to another part of the application, or any other part of the window in the same application. So here, this dialog box, which is meant to provide some information, notice that it has different pages. We call them tabs. Here we have a general tab which is currently selected. I can go to tools, I can go to hardware, I can go to sharing, quota, previous versions, and security. All of these tabs have their different information. Like this general tab will give you the general information about this drive or any other particular folder, as well as the file. So you can have properties for a folder, a drive, or a file. Now if I go through this general tab, you see that this is the general information about this drive. You can also have tools. If I click on this tab, that means you can either use error checking on the same drive, or you can defragment or optimize this drive. We will inshallah learn about these two tools also. Even if they are not in our syllabus, we will learn about them in our future classes. So these are certain tools that are provided for your drives. This will not be uh, part of a file or any other application. We will check this tab present in other application or a file. Then we have the hardware. So it is the technical information about the disk drive. Notice this information here is basically the technical information about this drive, like the partition, actual size of the partition. Like in this case, it is 128G, because this drive is basically manufactured as a 128 GB drive. Then we have this we have this you also notice this device properties. If I click on any of the drives here, you will see that this technical information is provided here, like the manufacturer and the location and the status of the device currently, which is working or it is not working. Then the sharing, if there are multiple users of in the system, then what is the sharing between these sharing of this drive with those users. Now currently this is not shared because I'm the only user, and if you know that Windows is an multi-user operating system, so you can share this drive between multiple users, or you can even share this drive on a network. Similarly, we have other tabs like the security, how the security is maintained over those users and versions and etc. Now look at this general tab here. Let us go through this information one by one. First of all, you see that this is the type. Then it says the local disk. This local disk is basically the name of this drive. I can change this name anytime. I can write down Windows, and you will see, instead of type, you will see that Windows drive. The most important information here is this file system, that is mentioned as NTFS. That is actually what we have to learn about. NTFS stands for New Technology File System. This is the file system which was adopted by Windows, Microsoft, for its NT operating system. Uh, NT operating systems are new technology, like XP and Windows 7 and Windows NT itself. They are the Windows NT operating systems, and they have all adopted NTFS file, that is the file system. This file system was a successor of the earlier FAT file system. FAT was used in Windows, previous version of Windows like the DOS and DOS 32, and it was also present in earlier versions of Windows also. You can also see those that FAT operating system. Currently, the newer version of it is FAT 32, or which is implemented in the pen drives or any other small secondary storage device. If you want to play that pen drive on a say on any other electronic device, like if you if you copy the data from your system on your pen drive, and then you want to play that pen drive on suppose a smart TV, or on your tape recorder or any other electronic device, that should be actually formatted using a FAT file system. Now here we have this NTFS. NTFS, that is New Technology File System. You will notice that every other drive here will have the same file system implemented. So if I go into the properties of this D drive, we also have this NTFS present there. Now, apart from that, you will see that the next information is about the use space and the free space. Now the use space is how much space out of the allocated space for this drive has been used currently, and free space is obviously how much of the space is left. So in this case, it is basically approximately equal to this number of bytes, which is around 587 GB, or roughly I can say it's half terabyte, and out of which only 7.53 GB has been used, and rest of the drive is actually free. So this is the graphical representation of that. Capacity is this number of bytes, which is 594 gigabytes, which is here shown as this picture, whereas this blue portion represents here the use space, and rest of the space is free. Now also there is another tool provided here, that is disk cleanup. So what happens is, whenever you delete a file, the leftovers of this file are remain in the drive. So you can use this disk cleanup utility to clean those drives. Also, in the same general tab, you can also have options like compressing this drive to save the disk space. We will learn about this compression, and allow files on this drive to have contents indexed in addition to file properties. You can see these boxes here. These are called as check boxes. You can either select them or you can deselect them. There are only two options available. So either you can choose to compress the drive, or you can leave this unchecked. That means there will be no compression. Now allow files on this drive to have context indexed. This is basically indexing of the files which is required, which is very much important when you actually try to search the file. So if they are indexed, it becomes very much faster to locate that file while you search that. So this is about this NTFS file system. In an NTFS file system, basically the if you for example, if I right click on this drive, because this does not contain any data, so I'll actually work on with this E drive. So if I right click on this and I click format meaning that whatever is present here will be erased. Why? Because format basically means two things. First of all, it means that you this Windows operating system will create a new file system for this drive. That means it will basically create this structure here, a fresh. That means if it's a D drive, and if you want to format it, and if you format the drive, so two things will happen. First, it will erase the disk. It will lose all the knowledge it had gained earlier about this drive, and it will implement a new file system. Here in this case, we have selected NTFS as a default. The Windows gives the option NTFS by default, because this is the default file system for newer version of Windows. Now you see that if I click on this, no other option is available, because any disk drive, that is any hard disk drive partition, will always and always be using a file system, that is NTFS. If it had it been a secondary storage like a pen drive, then you would actually see options like FAT and FAT32 or exFAT here. Now the capacity is 336 GB. So this is the capacity. And allocation unit size. This is what I actually wanted to show you. That allocation unit size by default in an NTFS system is 4096 bytes, that is 4 KB. So by default, the smallest size that Windows allocates to any of the file is 4 KB. So what does that mean? That means if I create a new file, suppose I create a new file here, say a text document. So I will name this as say temporary, say I'll name this as a temporary file, and I will write something here, say I will write Windows here, and I will save this and I will close this. Now if I in this context, if I open the properties of this file, now you can also see here that we have properties of a file as well. So that's what I was talking about earlier. So notice in the general tab here we have the file name as temporary. The type of file, is a text document. Every file has a type. Here in this case it's .txt, that is a text document. This type of file tells the Windows operating system that what kind of file this is and what is the application that is going to open this file. We'll talk about this portion later. So then we have this location. Obviously every time you save a file, it is saved on a location here. Now this location is very important because Windows will keep track of this location, and the next time user looks for this file, Windows will have an information about its location. We'll talk about this also. Then we have this size. The size of the file is 7 bytes. As we know from our previous introductory classes that the size of a character in an ASCII scheme is approximately 1 byte. So here we have seven characters, and if every character takes 1 byte, that means a total of 7 bytes. So this is a total of 7 byte file. This is the size, but you will notice that there are two parameters in relation to the size. One is the size, another is the size on disk. Now this size is 7 bytes, which is actually the size of the file, but notice the size on the disk is 0 bytes, which should have been actually 4096 bytes, because the least size that a window allocates to a file is approximately 4 KBs. Now you will see here size on the disk is 0 bytes, which is impossible if we talk about it in the literal sense, because if the file on the disk is 0 bytes in size, that means this file does not exist at all. That means this 4096 bytes, which is the default size, it does not apply anywhere. The size on the disk is 0 bytes, as the Windows does a default compression, and this leads to this 7 bytes being compressed and the size on the disk as the 0 bytes. If we go on increasing the size of the file by increasing the number of bytes by writing the contents, Windows is a GUI based system. You see, if I save this file and if I again check the contents of this file, you see that the size of the file has changed to 30 bytes, but the size on the disk still continues to be 0 bytes. It is because the compression is still yielding the size on the disk as 0 bytes. If I continue to increase the size of the file by just pasting these characters say I'll continue to increase the size of the file by increasing the number of characters. So if I save this file and check the properties now, you see that the total number of bytes present in the file is 3930. That means it will have approximately 3930 characters, which is approximately equal to 3.83 KB. And now you see that the size of the disk has increased, and it is greater than the size of the file itself, because now the compression is not giving a lesser value. So the minimum value that will be saved for this file, that is 4096 bytes, that is the minimum allocation unit size. So Windows NTFS by default chooses 4 KBs of size. Now you can change that. You can go to 8 kbs approximately, you can go to 16 kbs, you can go to 32 kbs, and you can go to 64 kbs. But the greater you increase the greater the size of the allocation unit, the smaller files will be actually lost in that allocation unit size, and you will end up losing a quite a big chunk of your hard drive for no reason. So that means the least size you can choose is 4096 byte, and you should keep it like so if you know that you will have smaller sizes as well. Then again, we go to the other option, that is the volume label. This is the label that you see here. uh, Here, so you see we are formatting drive E. This is new volume. So if I change the label here, that will be reflected here. And then we have the quick format option. Quick format means formatting this drive. As I told you, formatting means two things. First, remove all the links of the previously learned entries. That means any files and folders will be lost, although they are still there, but the Windows will actually forget about them all. The links are still present, but the Windows does not remember it. And then we have this first of all, that is the first step. The second step is that create a new file system table. So a new table will be created, and in this case it will already only remember that it has a drive which does not contain any folder at all. And the moment you start creating first file or a folder in this drive, that file table will be added up, and it will be modified, and it will continue to do so until and unless you fill it up, or you erase it, or you make any other format with this drive. So this is about the file structure of the Windows. This is what we want to learn about how Windows manages those drives, and how it keeps track of those files and folders. Also, notice that if I open any of the file here, if I click on this property, you see that apart from this information, that the type of the file and the application that it opens with, and the size on the disk, you see those options like the created, file modified, accessed. These these attributes are required by Windows operating system, which will be used later on by the user, by the Windows itself. And these are what will actually help us in various issues. Like, for example, if I want to know who has actually edited this or opened this file recently, so it will be shown here that it was opened today, on July 24, 2020, 5 hours ago. That means somebody has accessed this file today, modified it, and it was basically accessed Wednesday. It was created basically Wednesday, July of 8 at 9:41 p.m. and it was accessed at around 10:58 the same day. So these and other information also will actually be used by the Windows and the users later on. and are very important in keeping track of the files. Apart from this, we also see information like this with the folders, wherein you have different options as compared to the files itself. So you can also customize the folder, like I was talking earlier about changing the icon of the Windows drive, etc. So all of this is here. You also can have this, instead of right clicking and choosing the properties and seeing the most important options like the file created, etc. You can, what you can do is you can change the view of this content pane. So you go into the view option and you go into the type details, and you have this different details of particular folder and a file. So this Intel was modified on 8th of July around 12:16 p.m. and it's a type folder and the size is unknown because it's a folder here. So you can also right click on this bar here and you can add more number of um, parameters here. Like if I want to know say about the say any of the information, like the year, so this year will be added, and then the year in which it will be created, which will also be added later on. So you can keep on adding those parameters, or you can keep on removing one of the attributes from here. So I guess this is all for today. I hope this covers all the things that we need to know about the file structure of the Windows operating system. Further, if there are any things left, we will keep talking about them in our future classes as well. Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum.